Join us as we uncover the symbols, the stories, explore the mysteries, the power, and the legacy of a kingdom that is still unfolding. This is a journey where history, prophecy, power, and people converge, and the story is still being written, from ancient kingdoms to the spaces where modern voices meet. Voices that refuse to be silenced, part of a heritage that continues to shape the present. The past is not dead, it lives, it speaks. And here, we listen, we reason, we respond, and we testify. We dive into ancient truths, symbols, and signs still relevant today. The scepter has not departed, the mystery is not lost, and the kingdom, it is still unfolding, one episode at a time. This is more than a podcast, it's a return to the source. Welcome to the Scepter of Zion, where ancient truths meet modern voices. And now, to conversations, truth, and power, the scroll begins to open. And here to guide us through the gates, your trusted voice and seasoned guide, a voice for the remnant, your host, Ruben B.
I'm Pope Eugene III. My brother was Eugene the first, and my other brother was Eugene the second. Okay? But reason why I'm on this so-called podcast here, I know the year is 47, but I'm calling for a new crusade. You know why I'm doing that? For one thing, these Muslim forces are getting stronger and stronger. You know we can't have that. And once again, these routes are threatened. These Muslims are blocking the routes. So these peasants, pilgrims, can come spend their money, man. Basically, they messing with my cash flow. I can't have that. We need a new crusade. We need to stop this once and for all. And once again, I'm Eugene, the Pope Eugene III. I'm so good, I just named myself 3 times. So I'm gonna get my big homie over there, Louis, from France, and Conrad from Germany. We getting ready to turn up. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. I ain't playing.
The Second Crusade. And he ain't playing. The Second Crusade, the year 1147 through 1149. 2 years. 2 years they're fighting. The Crusade, that was supposed to save the Holy Land, but it collapsed in disaster. Whoa. So let me tell you what triggered this Second Crusade. The main spark was the fall of the county of Edessa in 1144. Edessa was the first crusade state ever created and the first to fall. It was conquered by a powerful Muslim leader by the name of Zengi, a ruler of Mosul and Aleppo. Seems like I heard of those two places before. Oh, it must have been during Desert Storm. Yeah, but anyway, it was taken over by this Muslim leader. With the loss of Edessa, it actually sent shockwaves through Europe. The Crusaders were losing ground. They was losing their grip. losing their control, losing their influence and their might. The Muslim world was growing more and more united. So the pilgrimage, the routes were threatened again. You know, the cash flow. You know, people couldn't get to market. People couldn't spend their money. People couldn't make money. So the holy project of 1099, that's when the First Crusade ended, looked like it was collapsing. It was falling down. So in response, Pope Eugene III called for a new crusade, the first one ever officially led by European kings. Kings. These two major monarchs. One was King Louis VII of France. Deeply religious. Saw crusading as a divine duty. You must get up and get your sword and rocks and sticks and whatever and go and fight this powerful Muslim machine. They stepping off into the Holy Land. But dude, you over in France. You set up in France, drinking banana wine, of course, eating grapes, whatever you were doing. You wasn't there. You definitely weren't in the midst of the fight. The second one was Emperor Conrad III of Germany. He was head of the Holy Roman Empire, and he was German. Or he was in Germany. And apparently he marched separately with his own army. Wow. So they expected a grand victory, but instead they walked right into disaster. Didn't end too well for you, buddy. It didn't. Both armies traveled through the Byzantine territory, then into the Seljuk Turkish land. And that's where everything went wrong. Everything just went sideways. Conrad's German army was ambushed and nearly destroyed. Louis' French armies suffered starvation, desertion, and heavy attack. The terrain, heat, and lack of supplies killed thousands. One thing you want to do is prepare for battle if you're going out there. All right? You need to have your supplies, man. So by the time they reached the Holy Land, both armies were broken and exhausted. Yeah, that's what happened, man. They suffered heavy losses. So the Crusaders' leaders met in Jerusalem and decided to attack Damascus, a major Muslim city. Big mistake. It was heavily defended. Local Christian allies warned them not to do this. Hey man, don't do it, bro. They fortified, they well-trained, and plus we outnumbered. You see a lot of our partners and stuff, our friends, our brothers, die in this heat. And you want to go up and fight against them? Don't do it. So there was really a political reason behind the scene. Jealousy. There was rivalry among the Crusader lords. Everybody after some all the time. After only 4 days of fighting, can you believe this? They panicked and retreated. Humiliated. We are humiliated. It's a sign that God disfavored us in his eyes. The final collapse of the Second Crusade. The armies went home. Hey, man, I'm going. Let's go. Pack your stuff up. Let's get out of here. This is a Muslim victory, guys. So they did not recapture Edessa. But you know what? At that time, it did not expand into the other Crusader states. And at that time, it didn't win any major territories at that time. But instead, what it did was just weaken the Christian influence and embolden Muslim leaders to set the stage for the rise to take Jerusalem in 1187. In other words, the Second Crusade was a turning point, the beginning of the end for Crusaders' dominance. This failure just strengthened the Muslim world. But see, you were warned not to do this. But they was going to take Edessa anyway, so you try to get your armies together, it just didn't work. But there were some changes, like in 1229, Jerusalem briefly returned to Christian control through diplomacy, through Frederick II. See, sometimes you have to talk your way through stuff. Work it out. But in 1244, Jerusalem permanently returned to Muslim control. From there, the Muslims ruled that city for over 460 years. Don't they still have some buildings right there? And I've never been to Israel because we got imposters here now. We got another group of people, a set of people there. I would love to go and check out my homeland. So from 638 through 1099, Muslims ruled. But see, they briefly lost it, in 1095. So in 1099 to 1187, Crusaders Christian ruled. So from 1187 to 1229, the Muslim went back into control. From 1229 to 1244, it was partially Christian rule. Then from 1244 to 1917, the Muslim ruled this. Until 1917. That was a major turning point right there. So it kind of ended the Muslim rule and the Ottoman Empire. So on December 9th, 1917, the British forces under General Edmund Allenby entered Jerusalem. Like I said, this ended the Ottoman Muslim rule. They were there for 400 years. So Jerusalem became under British military control during World War I. This marked the first time in nearly 700 years that Jerusalem was not under some type of Muslim governance. So from 1920 to 1948, the British Mandate period, right? This was the British Mandate period. So Britain was granted control by the Leagues of Nations. This period is called the British Mandate for Palestine. Britain supported the Balfour Declaration in 1917, promised a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. Jewish immigration increased. Arab-Palestinian resistance increased. Tensions escalated into repeated violence. Jerusalem was governed by British, but claimed by both Jews and Arabs. So in 1947, the United Nations proposed a partition of Palestine. 1948, the State of Israel declared independence. War immediately followed after that. See, if the state was already there, why would you need to declare independence? I'm trying to understand that. But anyway, I need to take a break. We'll be right back with some more scenes or from information from the Second Crusade. So war broke out immediately following this state of Israel independence. There was a big identity crisis going on at the same time too. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about it though. West Jerusalem was controlled by Israel. East Jerusalem, including the old city, was controlled by Jordan. Right? So Jordan ruled East Jerusalem and the old city. Jewish access to holy sites was restricted. Muslims and Christians' holy sites remained under Jordanian administration. 1967, the Six-Day War. Israel captures East Jerusalem from Jordan. Oh, they just took it. You don't capture it, you took it. Israel declared Jerusalem its undivided capital. So this is the moment to define the modern Jerusalem conflict. Israel controlled the entire city. Jerusalem's status remained internationally disputed. This is ongoing. So the Jews that are there now, they're not the original Jews, or they're not the original Hebrew Israelites. And I'm going to cover that story at another time. The great identity theft. what was so important that a group of people wanted to steal your identity and claim it as their own. That means that you were so brilliant, so magnificent, that a group of people wanted to steal your identity, your culture, your language. They wanted it. The Azahnaki Jews, they're from Central and Eastern Europe. Germany, Poland, Lithuania, Russia, Ukraine, Czech Republic. And then you have this other little sect called the Yiddish Jews, or Yiddish Jews. But they all wanted to steal your culture. Wow, you must have been really important, Hebrew Israelites, for a group of Europeans to steal your identity. Like I said, I'm going to cover that at another time. I seen actual footage from the Smithsonian, 1920 something. You probably can go on their website and look for it or whatever. Palestine, at that time in the 1920s, you didn't see nothing but all Black people. They were there long before these Europeans even came, even when they were fighting these First and Second Crusades. And so I did a little bit of research on just how many crusades were there. And it was like 40 of them, fighting over this land, fighting over this area. Mainly Jerusalem, but there was other parts of Europe that they was fighting on. And they call it a crusade. They call it a divine war. And most of these wars are sanctioned by the Pope. Some kings, but mainly by Pope, your so-called religious leader. So if he would study the scriptures, he would see that you need to keep peace. So if you go to Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, and then Revelation chapter 3, verse 9, get your eyes open a little bit. Does it cover exactly who is over there in Israel today? And why there's so much chaos and turmoil. It's never going to stop. It's going to always continue. And like I said, Pope Eugenius III authorized the Second Crusade in 1145. This actually became a regular church policy, not a one-off for emergencies like the First Crusade. But like I said, there was like over 40, and it wasn't just centered there in Israel or Jerusalem. And one of the main propagandalists or propaganda person was Bernard of Clairvaux or Clairvex or whatever, however you pronounce his name, was preaching to convince, actually he convinced King Louis VII of France, Conrad of Germany. Right? Bernard promised divine favor and victory, but they got their butts kicked. Damaged his reputation because it failed. It was considered a major failure. They were poorly supplied. They were strategically divided. Unlike the first one, where they kind of pulled through. They barely won that one. So this rift between Crusaders and other Christians and monarchs and kings kind of sparked the Fourth Crusade, and I ain't gonna cover that one. So like I said, there was over 40. And then, like the second one, it collapsed in 4 days when they tried to run up on Damascus, trying to just run up. So it just kind of strengthened the Muslim resistance and promoted jihad, both politically and spiritually. Just emboldened them. But like I said, this war wasn't just, this Second Crusade, it seemed like it just spread it. I guess it's how World War I, II, World War I just spread it through all these nations. It was in the Baltic, Spain, Portugal. Christians against Muslims. We see that now, right? Gaza Strip. Huh? I can't say Russia and Ukraine. Well, maybe I can. See, one is Orthodox Christian. I guess the Ukrainians are Jewish. I don't know. It's whatever. So this marked the shift toward crusading as a global Christian military ideology. It was just, wow. It just busted out all over. So nevertheless, the Hebrew Israelite community was prosecuted for just being who they were. And it was fueled through crusading rhetoric. And this rhetoric went beyond the church's control. I think we see rhetoric right now. It's being replayed live and in living color on TV. We've seen it again. Just talking crazy, just nonsense that's not making sense. But I want to talk about this queen that played a visible role in that Second Crusade. It was Eleanor of Antiochene, Queen of France. I wonder if that was Louis VII's wife. I don't know. Personally, I don't know. Personally, I don't care. She was there though. She joined the crusade with some nobles. Her presence challenged the norm and later fueled scandals and rumors, showing how crusading intersect with power, gender, and politics. She had her own entourage. What is it? They wasn't fighting it. Maybe they were just looking at it. I don't know. That's kind of wild. She just go there with some entourage, some nobles. Y'all, let's look at this Crusader that's going on. So after the Second Crusade, Crusaders became more bureaucratic. Expectations were more cautious. But the military order of the Templars gained greater authority. The idea of crusading shifted from divine miracle to long holy wars. Wow, we see that right now. These holy wars. So when you see these people blowing up themselves, that's what they're talking about, holy wars. ISIS. Who else? Other people too. Name all these people. So the Second Crusade mattered less for what it achieved and more for what it revealed. Limits of religious zeal, political fractions among Christians, the rising strength and unity of Muslim leadership, the transformation of crusading into an institutional imperial system. But see, that Second Crusade was also, it was a turning point for the Templars. By the time the Second Crusade came about, the Knights of Templars had moved beyond escorting pilgrims. They were elite, disciplined military order. So what happened with the Second Crusade, it exposed the weakness of these noble armies. But what it did was it elevated the importance of the oath-bound orders of the Knights of Templars. There was a power shift from the kings and the monarchs to this institution. Kings without wisdom lose dominion. The Templars, they matter. They headquartered themselves on the Temple Mount, Solomon's Temple. That's right, Solomon's Temple. Their identity was not just architectural and custodial, because Solomon's Temple symbolizes order, divine order, measure, divine measure, and geometry. The Templars represented guardianship, not kingship. They didn't wear crowns. They guarded the space where authority descends. This became crucial in Freemasonry symbols. The compass, more restraint, zeal without wisdom fails. Right action, order over chaos, stability, balance, inner sovereignty. Authority is earned, not taken. So after the Second Crusade, the idea of conquering holy space fails. The idea of building self-wisdom under the right order. Right order under wisdom. Proverb wisdom. Discipline. Self-mastery. Mastery. Master yourself, baby. Moral authority with political authority. They rule with discipline, law, and legitimacy. Man, I'm tongue-tied right now, so maybe I need some water or something. But power is sustained by order, not conquest. The crown is visible. The sword is loud. I'm going to say it again. The crown is visible. The sword is loud. Thanks for listening to the Scepter of Zion. Like I said, you lit from that flame. Stay rooted in resilience. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music. What else? Who else is out there? Did I say Amazon? Yeah. Just follow us.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Scepter of Zion. If something stirred your spirit, sparked a memory, or whispered truth into your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, speak it, walk in it. We invite you to invite others into the conversation, into the unfolding. This is more than a podcast. It's a movement returning to the root and rising with the call. Until next time, hold the line, guard the flame, and never forget who you are, because the kingdom isn't coming. It's already here and rising, one voice at a time.
You've been listening to the Scepter of Zion, a Kingdom of Shalom production. Subscribe, share, and join us as Zion rises again.